Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to England once again for the first time in what feels like a good little while. Now we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel quite a few times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, quite a few different styles, but if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. And along with a few others, these guys were one of the breweries that really pushed this style across England. In fact, one of the really pioneering breweries in that regard. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I've had from these guys quite a few times before, albeit not in a little while. It's one that I know they can do very, very well, and it's also one of their latest releases here in Hong Kong. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer's going to have in store for us. I've heard very good things about it, so hopefully it's another good one. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to England like I said. We're going to go toward the southwestern part of the country to a place called Cheltenham, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Deya Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called The Sun Drips Honey. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, if memory serves me correctly, this is another beer that I picked up at Beer in Tsim Sha Tsui in Kowloon here in Hong Kong, and I think this is the first Deya IPA that I'm trying here in Hong Kong. We did have an Imperial Stout from these guys a couple of months back, and that was really interesting. But yeah, it's my first IPA from these guys in about a year or something like that. So yeah, I was quite curious to try this one. There was quite a few Deya beers appeared here in Hong Kong recently, a few of the regular ones, but then there was this one which I'd never seen before, and that was the main reason why this is the one that I picked out of all the ones that were available. But yeah, it's a style I know they can do very well, so looking forward to this. Let's crack on then and see what this beer has in store for us. The Sun Drips Honey coming in at 8% ABV. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Deya Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the English playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity to here in Hong Kong, but not all that often these days. We'll see what we can do about that going forward, but do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Deya Brewing Company once again then. So, Deya Brewing Company, as I mentioned to you already, are based in Cheltenham in Gloucestershire in the English southwest, and the company was founded back in 2015 by Theo Frayne. So he was introduced to craft beer by his dad, who brought back some beers from a trip over to the US, and having, got really curious about what these things were, Theo decided that he wanted to start brewing beer for himself, and so he went to gain some work experience at Threakston's Brewery before he enrolled in the Heriot Watt Brewing Programme in Edinburgh, Scotland. But after this, he worked for a while at 5 Points Brewery in Hackney in London, and then he went over to America to work at Odell's Brewery in Colorado. But he'd always wanted to start up his own operation, and initially he was gypsy brewing at a few breweries in the Cheltenham area. So he later bought a brew kit from Harbour Brewing in Cornwall and secured a premises which opened up in 2016. But over the years, they've continually expanded their brewing capacity, and then a few years later in 2019, they moved into a larger unit where they have a custom-built 40 hectolitre 4-vessel brewing house with 2,000 square feet of taproom space. They've got a large outdoor area there which opens up in the summer as well, and the original unit that they had is now used as the barrel area for producing sour beers, and I've been to both of these things there. There is a taproom at that other side of the brewery as well. But the brewery itself is named after a village in Mallorca, and as of July 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 390 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and the current head brewer is Gareth Moore. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Deya Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. The other thing you can do is check out my out and about video that I filmed at their tap room, where we went to visit both sites, of course, just kind of the other one just being round the corner from the main one, and I filmed that with my good friend Harry Meadows of Blue Nose Beer Reviews. So yeah, do go and check out that video, and check out Harry's channel as well. Big shout out to him in this video, of course. But yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open up. One of the things with Deya Brewing Company, of course, is the crocodile themed artwork, which is quite nice. But there you can see the Deya Brewing symbol at the top. You can see a little bit about the beer here at the bottom. This is a half-litre can, incidentally. Deya Brewing are quite unique in that regard, that they don't do 440s. They prefer to do 500ml cans. I'm not going to complain because it's a little bit more beer. But yeah, so as we said earlier, this one comes in at 8% ABV. It's a New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. This one is hopped with Citra, Nelson Sauvin and Idaho 7. Quite a classic mix, actually, so it should be pretty good. We know these hops quite well. Citra and Idaho 7 are, of course, American. They both give about 14% alpha acid, if I remember correctly. Citra's going to give you quite a sharp kind of peachy note in there, a lot of juicy mango and a more kind of lemon limey character in a New England IPA. Idaho 7 is going to give you a lot of the softer tropical fruit in there, so you will get a bit of juicy mango, but you'll also get lots of apricot, papaya and a wee bit of pineapple there. Nelson Sauvin, as we know, is the classic New Zealand hop, 16% alpha acid, and it's going to give you that big white, green, grapey kind of gooseberry type flavour. So yeah, nothing else we really need to say about the beer itself. The sun drips honey. I think this beer should be pretty damn nice. So let's get it out into the glass then and see what it's going to have in store for us. Been looking forward to trying this one since I bought it about a week ago. So let's do this and see what it's all about. I honestly couldn't tell you offhand without looking back at the channel as to when I last had a hazy from Deya, but yeah, these guys, along with the likes of North Brewing, Wylam, Track, Cloudwater, and the other one's gone right out of my head, the one from Cornwall, these guys were the ones that really started to push this style around England, actually. So yeah, this is a brew that you definitely need to check out. But yeah, you can see we've poured maybe about 80% of the beer out and into the glass at this point, but you can see the beer poured with just under a finger of quite a bumpy, but I would say perfect white head there. You can see some medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, but it gets a little bit bumpier the further up the head that you go. But it looks pretty much exactly as you would expect from this style. Lovely bright yellow mango juice colour. I like comparing the appearance of these New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that really is just what they remind me of. But yeah, remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but when it comes to IPAs of pretty much any description, you don't often have to care about that. But yeah, this one, as I say, lovely bright kind of yellow mango juice colour to it. It's not the most soupy and gloopy of New England IPAs that I've come across. Remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. That can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. But yeah, this one, certainly not the soupiest and gloopiest 8% New England double that I've come across. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, and you can see the head has just faded away to be a sort of thinner foamy layer, and you've got that thicker ring just around the edge of the glass there. But all in all, It looks pretty nice, this one, I have to say. Pretty much as you would expect from the style, so I don't think we really need to say too much more about the appearance of this beer, in all honesty. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the aroma of this one. Then you can see that head has just dissipated away there, which is interesting. But yeah, let's have a wee look at this aroma and see what we have. That smells pretty nice. But I have to say, the Deya IPAs are quite distinctive in a way. I think it must be that they have their own house yeast or something like that, because there's always some of the yeasty character you get out of these is just really distinctive. Because, you know, if I was given this beer and I asked what brewery it was from, if I was told it was English, for example, you know, narrowed it down a wee bit, I could probably pick out a Deya beer given the opportunity. And it's just, you know, their beers have this sort of crackery, sort of farmhousey, bready character to them, and you can always pick it up as soon as you smell the thing. So yeah, it must be one of the house yeasts or something like that that they're using, or maybe one of the grains in fact, or a combination of the two. But yeah, the aroma out of this one is really, really nice. The beer's giving you everything you'd expect. You've got a good little bit of bready backbone to it, you've got a nice kind of fresh, bright green component, a lot of fruity, juicy character to it. That's everything you want from one of these New England hazy IPAs. So yeah, I like that about this one for sure. So let's just break the beer down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So as I've said in many videos before, for me there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to the malty side and yeasty side of a New England IPA. So you've got the farmhousey, yeasty kind of character, you've got the rye leaning, grainy side of things. Those tend to be a bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs, but you've got the wheaty bitiness, the oaty creaminess, the barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. Now very often with the Deya beers you get a bit more kind of yeasty character to them. You do tend to get quite a little bit of wheatiness, and then you've also got a good little bit of barley malt in there. Deya's New England IPAs are not the oatiest, I would say. They tend to be a bit more wheaty and a little bit more kind of crackery and yeasty and stuff like this, and you can definitely get that vibe out of this one. So yeah, for me, the backbone of this beer, it's got that little bit of kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. Further forward from that, you have you know, you do have a little bit of woodiness to this one, and quite a little bit of cracker as well, I would add. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in there, a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker, well not a little bit, I'd say quite a lot in all honesty, a little bit of woodiness and then quite a bit of Jacob's cream cracker behind it. But yeah, the bready character in this one's quite nice. There is a little bit of a sweeter wholemeal brown bready character to the beer, and that forms the backbone of it for sure. Yeah, I do like how that kind of pieces together. You do, as I say, the more that you smell of this beer, and again this is kind of common with the Deyas, you do get just that little bit of crackery, grainy note out of it. It kind of reminds me of sourdough bread almost a little bit. It's a wee bit like that. So yeah, the brown bready characters in there. Above that you're getting the white bready notes, and then you've got the wheaty character. This one, you do get quite a little bit of that wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose. So a little bit of wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose, more dense wheaty character coming out of it too. So a bit of a dense wheaty note, as I say. You get a bit more smoothness out of it. As your nose adjusts to the beer, you will get a little bit more smoothness out of the malty side of this one. I don't think this one has much in the way of oats. I mean, it does have a little touch of like creaminess in the middle of the nose, but it doesn't actually list oats on the ingredient list here, which I think they're supposed to, in all honesty. That's one of the things about European breweries. Yeah, they have to tell you whether there's oats in these things. But yeah, this one doesn't have it listed, but you still get a little touch of that oaty creaminess out of the beer. And when it comes to New England IPAs, oats are usually a good indicator of how fresh your beer is, because the creamier they are, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is. But that's a very crude measure, of course. But yeah, you do still get the impression of a wee bit of oaty character in this one, but the wheat obviously is quite dominant, and I say, don't think there is oat in I don't think there is oat in this beer, just otherwise they would have listed it. But still, when you sugar it up especially, you get a little bit of that slightly creamy, oaty type aroma. But yeah, above that, you get a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type character coming out of the beer. So yeah, for me, there's a little bit of that going on. You do have a little touch of a McVitie's digestive biscuity character to it as well. But other than that, I don't think we can really say very much more about the malty side of things. In the back of the nose, you do have a good little bit of yeasty character, of course. Little bit of like a kind of grainy, crackery, woody, bready character. So you can definitely get that at the back of the nose, and of course the wheaty bitiness is in there as well. And then, yeah, on top of all of that, it goes together really, really nicely. Yeah, I think we've said everything about the yeasty and malty side of the beer. Let's go on to the hoppy side of things. So as I've explained in many videos before, when it comes to IPAs, there are three types of hoppings to think about. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deeper, danker aroma. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil, assuming you've got a 90-minute wort boil. Of course, most IPAs it's there or thereabouts, but that gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour aroma, and a brighter green component in terms of flavour aroma. And then dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, is all about flavour and aroma, and it gives you a very bright green component. New England IPAs tend to use late addition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs have all three, which is why they're deeper, danker, and more bitter for the most part. So yeah, with this beer, you're definitely getting that very bright green component to this one. There is a little touch of earthiness to it, kind of minimal in honesty. There's a little bit of herbal character, but yeah, the green component in this one has a little bit of floral note, but I would say it's actually quite wet, quite grassy, and really quite leafy, in all honesty. I think that's a good descriptor of, I think that is a good descriptor of what's going on in this particular beer. So yeah, quite leafy green component, but when you take it in a little bit more deeply, you get a little touch of zestiness out of it, and I think that is most likely to come from the Citra in this case, because it has that wee touch of lemon and lime to it, especially in a New England IPA. Hops, of course, can behave differently depending on what yeast and malt and stuff you put them with. Yeah, I think that's it for the green component, but the fruity side of things is very nice, and it's pretty much what you'd expect if you know these hops. A lot of tropical fruit, and then that big oily orange. Not big oily orange, that big oily white green grapey thing from Nelson Sauvin. But it does have a wee bit of sharpness to it for sure. So if you take the aroma in quite deeply, you get the more oily characteristics out of the fruit. So that's the Nelson Sauvin, that big white green grapey, oily gooseberry sort of flavour. Or aroma, I should say. We're talking about the nose, not about the mouth. Brain's not working tonight. But yeah, you get that lovely big oily white green grapey note out of the beer. And then on top of that, you get some, you do get this really, really nice, I would say, just soft apricot. I think the apricot in this one is really, really apparent, but there's a bit of juicy pineapple in there, big mango, which is going to come both from the Idaho 7 and the Citra, but I think there's a wee bit of sharpness behind it too. There's this lovely kind of peachy, sharper peachy note in there, and I say soft, juicy mango, but yeah, apricot and papaya. There's a lot of papaya in this one too, especially when you sugar the beer up a little bit more. You get more and more of that nice oily Nelson Sauvin out of it. So yeah, the way that goes together in this one, I think, is very, very nice, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. Aroma wise, it's very nice, this one. Quite a soft and juicy New England IPA overall, but it gives you that sort of wheaty and kind of farmhousey, bready, yeasty leaning character that I've often come to expect of Deya. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it is about time for us to try this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the Sun Drips Honey. Just wanted to make sure I had the name right. An 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Deya Brewing Company in Cheltenham, Gloucestershire, over in England. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, pretty damn good. Not surprised considering which brewery we're talking about, but yeah, this is pretty damn nice. Yeah, first impression, soft, smooth, just juicy New England double IPA, this one. One or two little bits of sediment just coming out of the can there. This one, when does it say? It was packaged, canned on the 25th of March 2024. So we're drinking this one at about 3 months old. But yeah, it's still in pretty good condition. Yeah, and that's, I think I've only had this one, I'm sure, about a week or something like that in the fridge. So it's pretty damn, we got it pretty soon after it was released over here actually. But in fairness, you do want these beers to stay in the can maybe about 3 weeks or so after that, just so the green, because I find with New England IPAs you can get a lot of green if you drink them too fresh. You get a little bit of the hot burn, so you do want them to mellow out a wee bit before you actually taste them. Whereas West Coast IPAs, you can drink them like super fresh and you're not going to you're not going to get the same kind of hot burn out of them because of the sweeter and more oily malt base. But flavour wise, I think this one is pretty on point actually. So yeah, let's just break it down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the middle third of your palate then, backbone of the beer. The backbone of this beer, we've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust there. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you've got a little bit of you've got a little touch of woody character coming out of this one, which I think is really, really nice. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in there, a little bit of woodiness. Then above that, you get the Jacob's cream cracker out of this one. So yeah, white bready bread crust, like a hedgehog roll, a little bit of woodiness, then a Jacob's cream cracker coming out of it. So yeah, backbone on this one, you do get a wee bit more graininess and dryness out the beer into the aftertaste. But in fairness, there's more sweetness to this one in the flavour than you might have thought there was going to be from the aroma. So that's quite surprising about it as well. So on top of the white bready, on top of the cream cracker, of course, you get this little bit of brown bready character there. So you can feel there's that little bit of crisp brown bready character coming out of the beer. So that's in there. So it's that sweet kind of brown bready character in there. It does linger there into the aftertaste too, but then yeah, above that you've got a fluffier white bready note coming out of this one, which I think is nice. And the white bready character actually has a fair bit of density to it in this beer, and a little bit of sweetness too. But then above that you have the wheaty, white bready note to the beer, which I find really interesting too. So for me, the wheaty character in this beer toward the back of that middle third of your palate, you can feel the wheat has a little bit of bitiness to it, but not too much. It's actually very smooth, the wheat overall in this beer. So yeah, as you come further forward, you can feel the wheat mellows out and it almost has a little touch of sweetness there. So that dense, really quite dense, smooth, sweet white bready character that you get out of this beer, I think is really nicely done on this one. But yeah, above that you have what could be taken as a little bit of oaty character, but in the very centre, if you go down that middle line of your tongue, the wheaty character in this beer is so smooth that you could almost think it's just a little bit of oaty creaminess there. So just be aware of that. Like I say, this particular New England IPA I don't think has oat in it. But in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel that little circle there, which has a wee bit of a Werther's Original butter candy butterscotchy sort of thing to it. And at 8% ABV, you're going to get a little bit of that boozy sweetness out of the beer. It's just going to happen. And then, yeah, so you get that Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch, a little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity character, of course, like I said. And yeah, the way all of that goes together, I think, is quite nice in this one. So, I don't know if there's anything else really to say about that, about the middle third of the palate. in this beer. I think we've covered it. It's quite straightforward, but it is quite nice. You do get a little bit more wheaty bitiness out of this beer into the aftertaste, and I think that works for the beer. But let's look at the back third of the palate. And remember, as I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. But border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up in there. Bit of brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, then a wee bit of the wheaty bitiness there. But the backbone of that beer, you've got a fresh white bready bread crust in there again, which was a little bit drier almost. You've got the Jacob's cream cracker sitting above that, which I think is very, very nice. Then you've got the brown bready layer in there, which was a little bit taller, lighter and more airy. Then above that you've got the white bready layer above that, which was a little bit lighter, taller and more airy. And then above that you start to get the wheaty side of the beer coming out. So the wheat is quite smooth, but like I say, it does have a little bit of bitiness to it. On top of all of that, you have a nice little bit of yeasty character coming out of it, but the yeastiness is quite interesting because at the centre it's like a wholemeal brown bready sort of thing, and then around the edge of it it's a little bit more like a light white bready character, and then you've got this kind of crackery bread crusty side around the very edge of it. So on top of that, there's I don't think there's anything else on the yeasty side of things, but you get more of that yeasty dryness and the crackery notes coming out into the aftertaste. But definitely, the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of squashes down and presses together that little bit more. So the way all of that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. So I like that about this beer. The way it goes together, I think, is quite nice. So the malty yeasty side of the beer is good. On the hoppy side of things then, let's start with the green component. Back corners of the palate, there's definitely a little touch of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, you get a little bit of a herbal quality to the beer, and then as you push further forward, it's got a little bit of that kind of floral aromaticity to it, which I think is really quite nice, but not too spicy. It's quite a smooth and oily floral aromaticity. Round the front curve of the tongue, of course, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. But all in all, the way that goes together, I think, is pretty nice. So let's have a wee look at the fruity side of the beer then, and the front third of your palate. So fruity side of the beer for me. The front third of your palate then, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of the bready build up in there, the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top of that, and then a wee bit of the wheaty character above that. The base of that, the front third of your palate is quite nice as well, because you do get the white bready bread crust, the cracker. There's a little bit of the brown bread, but mainly it's the barley malt white bread and the smooth wheaty white bread above that. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just kind of roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at that. You get that nice oily bubble there. Let's break that down. So at the back of that front third of your palate, you're getting a nice you are getting a really nice kind of juicy peach, like quite a sharp, I don't know if sharp's the right word, but you get a nice big juicy peachy character out of this one, which I really enjoy. As you move further forward from that, you get quite a nice ripe juicy mango. So the peach is going to come from the Citra. The mango is going to come from both the Idaho 7 and the Citra in this one for me. But as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, there's like a soft apricot underneath, and there's a wee bit of kind of pineapple sitting on top of that. But as you go into the front half of that front third of your palate, you're getting more and more of that nice oily, you're getting more and more of that sort of nice oily Nelson Sauvin white green grapey note out of this one. It's really nice how that kind of just goes together. So yeah, fruity side of this beer I think is really nicely done. So for me, the other thing I would add is that just behind the front tip of the tongue, you do get a little hint of like a lemon limey type note there, just mixing in with the grassy esters. And the grassy esters show you a little bit of zestiness into the aftertaste. But overall, the way the flavors go together in that beer, in the fruity side of things, I think is really nice. And it's this one, it just feels a little bit different from the other New England IPAs I've had in recent times. A bit more yeasty and a bit more kind of crackery and grainy almost. So it's a nice change of pace, this one, in all honesty. But another very, very solid beer from Deya. But it does remind me quite a lot of the other ones I've had from these guys before, that more yeasty, farmhousey character that they have. So I really think it's one of the house yeasts. But let's round off this review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, mouthfeel wise, this beer, top end and mid-bodied, carbonation has a little bit of crispness to it. I find this beer a little bit smoother and a little bit drier compared to some other New England IPAs. I think the IBU count in this one is probably about the standard 30. Yeah, standard is kind of 30-ish IBUs for this one. Very soft and juicy overall, in all honesty. But the malty side of the beer, a bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and that wee bit of sweetness on top. And then, yeah, you've got that big, juicy, fruity character coming out of it too. So, yeah, quite tropical leaning, this one, but a bit more oily into the aftertaste. You get a little bit of the peachy sharpness in the beginning, I think. But yeah, as I say, thoroughly enjoyable beer, this one. Up there with the standards that I've had from Deya before. So yeah, definitely worth trying this one if you get the chance. I'm not sure whether this one is a regular or what, but yeah, I hadn't reviewed this one before and I've certainly enjoyed it. So yeah, another nice addition to the channel from Deya Brewing Company. So let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Deya Brewing Company as well. And we will return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slange, Skull, cheers, check out my social media, check out Deya Brewing Company's social media, and we'll do more reviews from these guys when the chance arises. Ciao just now.